Hi, welcome to the Shall Call podcast. My name is Brian Gallagher. I'm your host for the day, and we are joined by a host of authors for today's fantastic book release of Artificial Intelligence in Japan's Language Learning Classrooms, edited by Robert Dykes, Oliver Edwards, Dave Bollen, and Tina Shu-wen Lin. Yeah. So the book is released June 8th, 2026. And this book is a collection of several different authors. There are 11 chapters in the book. And of course, the introduction to the volume was written by Ollie Edwards, Robert Dykes, and Dave Bollen. So, Robert, welcome to the pod.
Thank you very much. It's been a while since I've been on an episode.
Right, so of course, Robert was one of our members at the start of the podcast, and we've now got 37 episodes under our belt. Yeah, and so with me, we've also got Ollie Edwards. Hi, Ollie.
Hello. Thank you for having me. Nice to be here.
Another fellow Scotsman. And Dave Bollen. Hi, Dave.
Hi, Brian. Hi, everyone.
Hi. So we'll start with Robert Dykes. So Robert, for this book, can you tell us a little bit about the concept of the book?
So the idea for the book started almost 2 full years ago, at Jap Call, almost 2 years ago in June, when everybody was publishing on AI, and we knew we had to get something out there that would answer the questions that that people weren't asking. So the original idea was, there was almost 100 presentations that year between the conversations at the different conferences, and the original idea was to do either 2 volumes or kind of like 2 parts, like one theoretical and one practical, that would, like, looking at everything. That's kind of how everything split up, because people were saying, hey, you can do AI to do this, or people were saying, how is AI affecting motivation, or how, what about the ethics of AI? So that at the beginning, that was the original idea, to try to split up the practicality of Gen AI and the language learning classroom, and then the theoretical kind of top-down view of AI in our, coming into our careers, into our classrooms.
Yeah, so of course things are cooling a little, but it's still quite frantic with all.
I think from the practical side effect, like the practical usage, we kind of have reached a saturation point. Where, like, all the ideas of how we can use AI here and how we can use AI there, I think that is reaching a saturation point. Not in a bad way, because now we're refining it. But I still think there's questions remaining to be asked.
So in the preamble for the book, so you write that the contributors highlight a wide range of perspectives, from practical applications, as you said, such as AI-assisted feedback, writing support, pragmatic instruction, to broader questions about motivation, teacher beliefs, and the evolving roles of learners and educators. So Ollie, can you tell us that there are 4 parts to the book?
Yeah, there are 4 parts to the book. So, we start with an introduction, just sort of setting the scene, talking about the upcoming chapters, and then the first section is it's titled "The Role of Generative AI in Second Language Acquisition," and that's just a single chapter, but it's quite a big question about whether AI will have such an impact on, like, SLA that it might even, supersede or fundamentally change what second language acquisition is. So that's quite a very broad, quite wide-ranging, quite interesting question. And then from there, we move into part 2, which is kind of practical applications in language learning. So that's where we're looking at using AI for feedback or as a writing companion. And then in part 3, we talk about biases and the kind of ethical side of AI, and how AI can be used to kind of support things like decolonization or I don't know quite how to say that. To how AI can be used in certain ways to support how teachers want to include kind of ethical discussions in their classroom, maybe, and then also about students' perceptions of how AI can be used ethically or whether it can be used ethically.
Mm.
And then in the final section, it's more about maybe institutional approaches to AI, how it's been adopted or not adopted by universities and learning institutions, and the kind of challenges of that.
Right. Okay. So previously on the pod, we talked about changes in policies around the world. So, for example, in Australia with social media, that there's certain laws and rules. Of course, the UK is full now, so lots of countries are now starting to get a grip on maybe what they could and should allow. So okay, let's go back up to part one. So, of course, part one, the chapter is the end of second language acquisition. So, your author for that?
You probably want to do me last, I think. Don't. I mean, in the book, it probably makes sense for my chapter to be first, but in this discussion, it probably makes sense for it to be last, I would think.
All right.
Because
Okay. Well, let's move on to part two then. So part two is practical AI applications in language learning. So we've got Rob Herschel and Kayoko Horai, and we've got Maria Melnikova and Ashton Dawes, and we've got Yukie Saito. So which one of these authors do we have now?
Kayoko's here and Ashton is here.
So Kayoko, can you give us a short rundown on your chapter?
Okay, hi everyone. Let's see, our chapter is talking about usage of AI in a practical classroom, that giving feedback for writing assignment, it takes time for teacher to do, and it's not timely we can give, but it is very important for student to do quickly to get to understand what kind of mistakes they've been doing. That would help. So AI can do very quickly. So we try to embed our Moodle system, and student do writing activity, and student put into that writing, and AI can give some grammatical mistake. And that was quite it's how to say personalized learning will be helpful for that way. And it's kind of less burden for teachers, that we don't need to take note back home and or office and work on. So that was very helpful. That's kind of briefly our study.
All right. Well, congratulations on your chapter. Congratulations on your chapter. Okay, so up next was chapter. Go ahead.
So I just think that the corrective feedback thing also ties into kind of motivation for students. You know, it's really motivating if they can get feedback quite quickly, instead of, I think, sort of traditional teacher-led feedback might take a long time to get for writing, or it might be very sparse because you've got 30 students to get through, you know. And motivation, AI and motivation comes up later in the book, and it's one of those things where we made decisions about the sections, but actually there's quite a lot of overlap and crossover between many of the chapters. I just think that's quite a sort of interesting.
I want to chime in and say, like, I think Kayoko, she's kind of selling it short. Like, it's not just saving teachers time, which is important. Like, a lot of studies have shown, and the chapter talks about this, is the students really appreciate speedy feedback. Right. So like in writing classes, if you have 100 essays or 1,000 essays, it might take you a week, 2 weeks. And with like the benefit that like they show in their chapter is the students are getting immediate feedback in minutes. And like the students really appreciated that aspect of the feedback. So
do you really think that's true? That the reason that education has we've had so much trouble with language education all these years is that you just, people that just can't get feedback fast enough.
It's a tiny aspect of like writing feedback, because it's fresh in their mind, and then they can see what they did, what they did right and wrong.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's solving problems, but that's one of the. I have a lot of issues with using AI with like writing, but this was one of the positive aspects that I appreciate writing feedback on the back end, because I think it does solve some of the issues with writing classes in the academic setting.
Yeah, well, for sure, it's going to affect every teacher of writing, because we all give feedback to all our students. So yeah, it's very critical to do. Right, okay. Chapter 3 was generative AI as writing feedback companion. Practice efficacy in student beliefs. Do we have Maria or Ashton?
I'm here. Masha can't make it.
Hi. So can you give us a
Hi.
lowdown on your chapter?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, this thing was such a long time ago, and I haven't even done the practice in a year now, but I think I can do this. So essentially, we wanted to look more at the feedback literacy side of feedback giving, what AI could do for feedback literacy. So we asked students using a few selected categories of prompts to generate questions about their own work. We wanted them to seek their own feedback. This kind of echoed a practice that was already ongoing in those writing classrooms at the time, where we would have students come to us with student-led consultations, which take up just an exorbitant amount of class time. And of course, you want to give every student their own set of 10 minutes, but 10 minutes just is not enough time to go over a full research paper with students and all the questions that they have. So we wanted to supplement it with AI. Okay, we can't be there for you for the 30-minute session that you deserve. We've got 25, 35 students in a class. What can we do? And AI kind of came out as this potentially useful tool. So we asked students to seek their own feedback, and we recorded the questions that they wrote. We also asked them to give their perspectives on how AI was working for them. What we found in the first year versus in this chapter, what we found is that students still had such a strong preference for their teachers' feedback, but that AI for them was a way to get that immediate feedback. They also learned that the feedback that AI gives them is not necessarily immediately accurate. It might not be the best feedback for the context. And of course, I mean, this is not in the chapter, but we can say this now, is how much LLMs have improved at providing contextual feedback. So we didn't have that at the time. And so when students would put in their work, even if it was B1 level, or even for some of them more like A2, they usually use ChatGPT. It would still churn out like this C1, C2 level response that students just couldn't quite parse. And that's where we felt, as teachers, this is really where our niche is that we can provide this perfectly leveled feedback that the AI is not yet able to do. However, we did see some massive improvement with our students' work. We also saw some very unfortunate over-reliance on AI. But generally speaking, I think the practice created more feedback literacy for them. They had better questions to ask us later. And the students became very, I want to say, like AI literate through this practice, because they started to recognize when they were getting poor quality feedback, or when the feedback just wasn't, it wasn't meeting the context of what they were looking for. Even if it was a correct correction, it didn't match their specific context. They learned how it would provide them fake sources, so they needed to actually search themselves. So we did see a lot of improvement with feedback literacy that we observed in the class, and having more students say that they're not sure they would continue to use AI like this really indicated its shortcomings at the time. And I mean, it would be very interesting to replicate this study now and see what would happen, because I think the with the improvements we've seen in AI, we might get significantly better feedback, but we also might not get quite as much of an increase in feedback literacy from our students. So I'd be interested to see.
Do you think that the feedback that students are getting is maybe is too good, and that it's too complex for the students, and maybe like the teacher is more tailored to exactly, like what's their kind of capacity?
Yeah, you've pretty much summed up exactly what we found from the 2024 findings, which was, yeah, the feedback was far too complicated for students to parse. They didn't really know what to do with it. They would end up just translating it to Japanese. And that was, well, I'm not necessarily against translanguaging, especially in writing. That wasn't the program that I was teaching in, and so it wasn't really an allowed practice. So yeah, again, what students were getting was feedback that was at an academic level that we would have wanted to see. But we also asked them to only focus on very specific parts of their paper, never to give their whole paper to AI, just to make sure that they still had to have some form of cognition. What is it asking you to change, in what part, and why? Was it absolutely perfect? Absolutely not. No study is, and no practice is. But I think in terms of the feedback literacy growth we saw, it was very much a worthwhile study.
All right. Great stuff. Great stuff. Congratulations on your chapter.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Ollie, there's another chapter, chapter 4 in part 2. Can you tell us a little bit about Yukie's chapter?
Yeah, so Yukie Saito's chapter. So this one is a kind of really specific example of using AI, or ChatGPT in this case, for like a very specific purpose. And it was, I think, analyzing scripts from the TV show Friends, among other things, and looking at how conversations are closed, conversation closings. So it's a really quite an interesting example of AI being used for a very focused, specific purpose in a sort of language teaching context. But I think, as Ash kind of alluded to in what she was just saying there, one of the issues we had with the book, and one of the issues with the AI in general, is that it sort of advances very quickly. And lots of these are, like Ash was saying about the feedback becoming even better than it was in the chapter than it was at the time they wrote the chapter. I think that also maybe could apply to this chapter, in that potentially ChatGPT is more suited for analyzing the closing now than it would have been. I think that was a real. I mean, it's a sort of inevitable problem when you're dealing with kind of new or quickly advancing technology, that things maybe move faster than we could kind of respond to.
Yeah, that's always the same with even publishing in journals. You're like always you've got the lag behind. Right. Okay. Let's bring in another voice here, Dave Bollen. So Dave, you're one of the other editors, and Dave, can you take us through part 3, the bias, ethics, and decolonization?
Sure. Just before I do that, could I quickly go back to that part that Ollie was talking about, and I think Robert referenced in the beginning about that speed of publication, if not being of the essence, was going to be particularly important. And I think it was particularly important there for part 2, the practical AI applications, perhaps less so for more general concepts, even whatever institutional changes or bias and that type of thing. But I think we were very aware that for the numerous people, Robert Herschel and Kayako and others working on those practical AI applications, that yes, the need for contemporaneous voice was that speed of publication was going to be most important for that section of the book. Sorry, yeah, you asked me to move on to
part 3. Part 3, so
part 3, bias, ethics, and decolonization. It's a pity. Jonathan Donnellan, who I work with at Sojo University, along with Robert and Ollie and some of the other authors, is not here. But these are. I'm not sure. Unlike part 2, which I think many students would be aware through their English classes or other classes that they're taking of some of these factors. Perhaps Japanese students in particular, perhaps less aware of some of the things that were taking place here. I'm not sure if any of the authors are here to speak on their chapters, but
part 3 is one of my favorite parts.
Here.
I can talk about it a bit if you'd like.
Sure. Yeah.
So, like chapter 5 is Matthew Wagan, and so he talks about like bias. I think bias is a huge problem that's built into the LLMs, right? It comes from the training data, the nature of the data. So it's the data is okay. I'll try not to get too technical. The data is pulled from websites. It's pulled from books. It's pulled from Wikipedia. It's pulled from Reddit. It's pulled from. We can look up the data, like where a lot of this stuff is pulled from, but like that data isn't representative of the world population, right? So you're already getting. So for example, what is it? Something like 75% of the world's websites are English, and like 60% are from America, those sort of things. And so the training data is going to be skewed towards the data that it's getting. So like anyway, what I really liked about his chapter is that he took a group of students and he had the students create images, and he had the students like try to find the bias in the output. And so he wasn't just writing about bias, he was having the students ask themselves, like, what do you see is different in this? What do you see is wrong? So I think that's really important, is that we're handing the students, this world of free information at their fingertips, but we're not handing them the tools to critically examine the output. And so there's a lot to examine, and in this chapter, he helps the students work through the output that they're getting and to question it, which I think is fantastic moving forward.
So does that mean it's more that this kind of chapter is more for people who are designing and using as a bit of due diligence to?
Well, this was very specific. He had an English art. He was teaching an art class in English, so this was very specific to like art output. So, but I think it remains the same though in other contexts, whether it's art or text or video or audio, that there's going to be some sort of bias in that output. Now it's getting better. I will say, compared to like ChatGPT 3.5 and 4, now we're on 5.5. The bias is getting slightly better, but it's still there. And that kind of leads me into the next one with the decolonialization. This, like, I had never heard of this topic until Johnny had submitted this chapter. And because I was interested in algorithmic normalization of language, which is kind of exactly what he's talking about. So decolonization is okay, so textbooks are made by a select number of publishers. I don't know, let's say there's 20, 30 major publishers in the world. They come from the UK and they come from America mostly. We have a couple in Japan. And then they influence the dialects, and they influence the grammar patterns, and they influence the patterns of English and English learning. And so that's what Johnny means by the colonialization of English and the colonialization of English teaching, right? But we have Singapore English, we have Korean English, we have Japanese English, we have lots of world Englishes. What is it, like 2/3 of the world English speakers are non-native speakers, right? So there's no correct English and there's no like really wrong English. And so he's saying that now with the power of AI, we kind of have a chance, if we take it now and we take it early, we have the chance to take the normalization or the colonialization of English away from the big publishers. And so now it's in the hands of the teachers. You can have a broader range of dialects. You can have a broader range of of English is in your materials, your textbooks, your audio, your video, things like that.
So it's sounding like almost proportional representation, right?
If you choose to, yeah. I mean, it's a lot. It's one of those things that I never even thought about before I read that chapter. So it opened my mind to what was happening, and now we have a tool to change that.
Right. So Jonathan Donnellan, of course, his doctorate is in education and social justice. So that makes perfect sense. That's why he wrote a chapter along those lines. So the final chapter in that section, discussing the vignette technique for assessing student perceptions of ethical AI use in the L2 learning environment. So that was Joel Neff and Kasumi Arciaga.
Yeah, this was another one that I loved because I think their vignette technique is timeless. I think this is something that everybody needs to approach. They need to read this chapter, and what it is they have a number of scenarios, what they call vignettes, and they provide it to students, or they provide it to teachers or faculty, and they ask different scenarios: is this ethical? Is this ethical? Is this ethical? And then so you can get an idea of where the perceptions of ethicality lie. But no, why I like this is because it doesn't matter. Like, you can apply the vignette technique now, in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years, because everything's changing. The bar is changing, the contexts are changing, the use cases are changing, and like the ethics today are not going to be the same ethical viewpoints we have in 5 years. And so I love the way that they approached looking at the ethical use of AI, because I really feel that their approach to this is something that can be applied over and over and over again to numerous contexts and timelines.
All right, great stuff. Right, okay, everybody, we're going to take a short break and we'll come back. So get us after the break. Hi, welcome back to part 2 of the Jalp Call podcast. Today we are enjoying the authors talk about artificial intelligence in Japan's language learning classrooms. So, Robert Dykes, can you tell us about part 4, the learning curve, about AI in the classroom and perceptions and policies and pedagogies?
So part 4 is kind of ending the book from I don't know if top down is the right terminology. Kind of from how do I say this? Like an outside view. So looking at how AI is being perceived, from a not an outside perspective. What's the word I'm looking for? From a overview. From not within the classroom, but how are students, how are administrations, and how are teachers kind of accepting AI or not accepting AI.
Third-party perspective, right?
Third-party perspective.
Let's hear from Chapter 8's author, Michio Oda.
Hi. So on the chapter 8, I explored how ChatGPT and machine translation affect the motivation by the English learners. So basically, I conducted the literature review, which was the study that were held in Japan. So, and then I covered so many studies. So I just pick up 3 research findings. And then the one is the study that's to study about how the ChatGPT affect the students' motivation. And then their findings is that basically the originally high motivated students have more motivated by using ChatGPT. So they think that is using the ChatGPT can increase their practices and increase their Yeah, so they have some the good view for their using ChatGPT or the machine translation. But as for the student who are originally have the low motivation for learning English, their motivation for learning English has been decreased because of the advent of ChatGPT or machine translation. And then the other study is explored about the teacher's perspective of using ChatGPT in their classroom. And interestingly, most of the teachers have the positive perspective of using ChatGPT. They think that the ChatGPT or the generative AI helps them to teach or support them, to teach English. But they're concerned about their academic integrity or creative thinking. So these are the concerns that are shared in the study. The third study that is I included in the chapter was like the student perspective of using ChatGPT or generative AI and machine translation. And the student perspective is positive as well. And they're using machine translation or generative AI boosted their confidence of writing English or speaking English. So they feel better when using generative AI or machine translation. Yeah, that's all for my chapter.
And now from Chapter 10's Stephen McWhinney.
Yeah, sure. So basically, yeah, I was looking at kind of perceptions, looking at how AI chatbots and also some related tools can be used to support listening development in language learning classrooms. My main idea basically is that listening is often very passive. We encourage students to listen to recordings and answer questions. But with now the emergence of all of the different AI tools, we can really make listening more interactive because students can hear the language, they can respond, they can get immediate feedback, and they can continue the exchange in real time. I think that's really the important part. And so in this chapter, I took a look at several different studies, as well as one of my own, looking at kind of perceptions regarding personal assistance, how students might respond to AI synthesized speech, overall student perceptions of the use of AI, specifically in my own work, which was looking at ChatGPT's audio features, so being able to speak with AI, and what the students kind of thought about that. The results are kind of mixed, as you might imagine. There's negatives and positives kind of all around, but overall, I think I suggest that AI really has a lot of potential for listening instruction, especially in contexts like Japan, where I am, of course, where students have really limited opportunities for authentic English language communication, just chances to actually speak and use the language. Yeah, so it depended on the study. One study was looking at using the Google Nest Hub and talking about how to use like audio, visual, or listening, and kind of comparing what was the best. There was another study that looked at different AI voice synthesizers to see what students' reactions were to the speech. Finding that for the earlier AI speech, when this was done maybe in like a 2022, 2023, there's some feeling of unnaturalness. In terms of modality, there's some variety. For my own research, my students tend to use either ChatGPT or they use Grok. Because it tends to allow for the most, I'd say authentic communication. If the students want to discuss really anything, they can really get a very wide range of replies. Having said that, my university uses Microsoft products, and so once they install our suite of tools, everything comes primed to use Copilot. And so I've noticed that has also been kind of a recent uptick in using that for these interactions.
Right. Copilot, for sure. Robert, if you'll let me dive in. So, of course, my chapter was chapter 11. So, navigating AI ethics in Japanese higher education. So, I was looking at policies and challenge and collaborative efforts. So, basically, for using AI in universities, a lot of teachers are really for a while they were panicking that AI was going to just help students cheat. to do their assignments. And so universities very quickly, abruptly, I don't want to say clumsily, but they frantically got together to look at their plagiarism policies and then try to add an addendum of an AI factor to it. Or some of them actually created singular AI policies. So my chapter looks at data from all over the country. I think it was somewhere over 200 universities, institutions, and basically there is a range, and the result of all of that is that there is not looking like there's going to be any clear policy. It's very unlikely that Mombu Gakusho, the government, are going to directively give people a policy that they should implement, because Japan loves the phrase guideline. So guideline means that you do not have to police it, because a policy has to be policed, and so guidelines allows us to, how shall we say, accommodate any and all situation. So of course that's a fantastic chapter because I wrote it, but maybe it's not that fantastic because it was put it was put last in the book. But that brings us to the conclusion at the end. So of course the conclusion was written by Robert Dykes. So Robert, your conclusion was entitled "Mediating the Future of AI in Language Education." So how do we do it?
So how do I say this? It's kind of difficult to be where we are, right? As teachers and educators and academics and researchers, we're kind of forced to interact with AI. We're forced to deal with it. And I think a lot of people felt forced to take a stance, like anti-AI or pro-AI, and it's honestly like it's a bit exhausting sometimes. Like the anti-AI people are so like there's a lot of black and white opinions out there, and then I was telling somebody about this book, and they were kind of like, "Oh, it's pro-AI," and I was like, "Well, I don't really think so, and I don't even think even the practical chapters in this book are not necessarily pro-AI. Like I think all of them discuss some drawbacks to the usage of AI. So to sum up the conclusion, it's kind of like don't take a pro-AI stance, don't take a anti-AI stance. AI is here. AI is here, and it's here to stay. And our job as researchers and our job as educators is to find the best usage of AI and also prevent the bad usage of AI. So right. I kind of make the analogy that all throughout modern times, like, well, not since the industrialized age, since factories, we've always had cheaply made furniture or cheaply made cars or cheaply made this, and then on the other hand, like we appreciate handmade products or like we get teizukuri, like teizukuri soba, like why like okay, or we can get cup noodle, like both serve a purpose in the world. And so our job is to find out, like, as educators and researchers and leaders in this field, is to help guide the best. I came up with this analogy, is not in the book. I've since come up with this analogy, but AI is like a rushing river. We cannot stop it. You cannot stop a rushing river, but we have the ability to change the direction of this river. And so instead of taking a pro-AI or an anti-AI stance, the best case scenario for us to do is to help shape the future of where AI goes with our students and in our classrooms and with each other.
Right. Good analogy. Yeah, I often kind of like think about that when if you have a hunter standing in a river and the water is passing through his legs and it's going on in front of him, where is the future and where is the past? So I guess in Western thinking, we often think that the past is behind us and the future is in front. Whereas if you go to some other countries, maybe South America or African countries, they believe that the future is behind us because the future we cannot see. and the past is in front of us. So it's something that we can see. So yeah, who knows? But yeah, it's good. It's great to have like such a collection. So we're going to jump to Joe Minor. So Joe, this is book 9.
Sorry,
No,
Brian.
Robert, we got to get
Could I very quickly jump in there? Just I
Go on.
think the thread that runs through the whole book is that need for all of the stakeholders here, whether they're students or teachers or administrators, to adapt. And I think most of the chapters discuss in various ways how people are adapting or how people feel about the need to adapt to this new reality. I suppose that's a going back to Robert's point about the thread that runs through the whole book. Anyway, yeah. But yes, we do need to go back to the beginning, to Robert Swire, I believe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So I do want to say Robert Swire was, I think, maybe the very first person that I asked to put a chapter in this book. So he kind of had a somewhat, I don't know if I should use this word. You might want to edit this out. I think he
Go ahead.
kind of had a somewhat controversial viewpoint that Gen AI may lead to the end of second language acquisition as we know it today. But part of me, I'm not going to say agreed with him, but part of me could see that he was right. And yeah. So anyway, Robert, we put his first because it served as it's a great primer to not only SLA but also Gen AI, and then his opinion on where SLA is going. Anyway, let's hand it over to Robert Swire to talk about his chapter.
Sure. So my chapter is called "The End of Second Language Acquisition." There's a question mark at the end of the title, which I put in to be charitable, but I don't think it's necessary. I don't think there's any question that this is the end of second language acquisition. There's no other way that this can play out. So in my chapter, I trace sort of the parallel histories of the development of artificial intelligence. My background is not in language education. So that makes me a little different from maybe some of the other authors. My background is in computer science. So I studied artificial intelligence prior to, the sort of the deep learning revolution and things like that. So I've sort of been around in AI for a little while. So I traced the development of AI from the 50s basically to the present, and I traced the parallel history of second language acquisition, which really, as an academic field, got started around the same time. And one of the striking things is that AI started with a lot of excitement and then had many years of really lackluster results where things just didn't work, funding dried up, people were excited about things and they thought things were going to move quickly, and then you realize that intelligence is a really difficult problem. But progress didn't stop, and we eventually got to where we are today, where we have just, in some cases, scarily effective AI systems, and what has happened in SLA in that time.
Let's get to our publisher, Joe. Give us a quick roundup of the end. So please tell us about the book and how people get their hands on their book. I heard there was some talk of some coupons or some ebooks. So Joe, take it away.
That's right. Yeah. Thanks very much, everybody, well, firstly, congratulations to the editors and the authors. Really excellent job. And as both Roberts have said, that we're documenting, I think, a particular period in time. And it's book 9 in the Life and Education in Japan series. And all of the books, I think, are written by and written for educators in Japan. And obviously these themes are important for us, and it's so important to get our hands on different perspectives, and we want to know what's going on in different people's classrooms. So thank you to all of the authors. Maybe I think some of you are much further ahead than I am in understanding the role of AI and where it's going and all this kind of thing. But the book at the moment, I think it's absolutely perfect for somebody like me who's sort of interested, and I really want to work with my learners to make their learning process more meaningful. I want to respond actually on page 26. There is some positive in your chapters, Robert Swire, I know, and I'm going to focus on the positive. I don't disagree with what you've said, by the way, but I want to focus on the positive just to end up. You said there will always be some who learn second languages for cultural engagement, personal enrichment, or specialized jobs. Of course, there will always be these people who want to experience speaking a foreign language, and AI gives us opportunities, perhaps. I know a lot of challenges too, but it's more fun. I mean, it doesn't make it any easier, but gosh, the opportunities are really fun for those of us who really want to learn languages. And I think they will always be there. But I don't disagree with other points you made, of course. So if you're interested in getting hold of this book, it's available in print or beautiful ebooks, and it'll soon be in libraries as well.
Right, so Joe, so for the online store, so it's an EPUB and a PDF bundle. You can get it on Kindle in the Amazon store, and you can also get it in Amazon in print as well. And of course, we should encourage people to get it for their library, so that way, it can reach out to more and more people. So not just about your own copy and then hold it tightly. You want to get it for your library and let other people access it.
Yeah.
So guys, before we drop out for there were two questions that came in. So one of the questions was AI can be a tool for allowing students with disabilities and a history of anxiety about writing and reading. So there's currently a focus on AI cheating that drives people back to paper, but the benefits to marginalized students shouldn't be swept away with the fear of cheating. So is this issue addressed in the book at all?
So my answer is no, but we have a third book that is starting now that I'm hoping to better address these questions, because the issue is we don't know the effects of AI on students yet. There's not enough data, there's not enough studies to know. So okay, if I understand your question, you're claiming that the AI is reducing anxiety. The thing is we don't have definitive proof of this yet. Like, actually, I just attended a presentation, a longitudinal study on motivation, and they found that a motivation in writing, and there was zero change. And so, like, we think there should be positives, but we don't know the answers yet. So actually, we've started a third book. Miguel, I don't know if Miguel's still here. And those are the questions we're trying to answer in the third book. Yeah, so Miguel Campos is here. So we've launched a call for proposals for a third book, and these are the questions we want to ask: is how is anxiety changing? How is motivation changing? Because if those things aren't changing, sorry, I'm reading the question again.
If I may butt in, basically handing somebody a piece of paper if they've got profound writing difficulties, it's like giving them a house brick. Okay. And so suddenly people have the opportunity to organize their thoughts and get their ideas out. And if teachers say, no, we must use paper because they're going to cheat, that's like ripping the ladder out from under these people who've got a window of hope. And I mean, you say that there's not much evidence, but I would say, who was in the study? Who were the participants in the study? Were those people filtered out? If they're postgraduates or if they're graduates, they were never, those people are never even counted. So this is from my experience of having people asking me this stuff. They're actually saying it, relatives and friends and other people saying, this is amazing. I can actually communicate. So if teachers just say cheating, then they're going to lose it.
We don't know. Okay, so as a neurodiverse person and student and professional, like, I've had accommodation, right? And so some people look at that accommodation as cheating or something like that, but it doesn't, or it's not cheating. And so the thing is what we have to measure is what we have to be careful with is using I'm actually presenting on this in November I'm presenting on this next week, actually. ADHD and ChatGPT.
Right?
Yeah, Jiao Call as a scaffolding agent, basically using ChatGPT as accommodation. The problem is at what point do we use a Gen AI and we're damaging cognitive progression? So like that's the slippery slope is that yes, we can use Gen AI, as you're saying, as a scaffolding agent, as accommodation, but we can't use it to the point where it's decreasing like cognitive.
Well, I could tell you that not getting access to tertiary education because you can't spell or you can't write neatly is going to shorten your lifespan. It is going to reduce your opportunity for marriage. It's going to reduce your opportunity for a job that you can control. So we need to think very carefully before we say these things are cheating.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. So like when I had a writing test, nobody else could use a dictionary. I could use a dictionary. Because for spelling, right? Because the test would count off for spelling, like, and then, but that would throw me off so much. So when we were writing essays, I was allowed to use a special device. It wasn't a dictionary; it was a spell checker. So I was allowed to use a spell checker. So yeah, like it would help me write my papers or essays in a test. And so like that's what I'm saying. We need more. We need that kind of
data.
We need that kind of data, but we need that kind of not accessibility. We need that kind of accommodation without crossing the line into cheating. So that's what's difficult, is because like Gen AI right now is just everything, right? You can do anything and everything with it.
Right. So Gen AI now is really quantity rather than quality.
Quality,
yeah. And I think like when we look at quality, like the quality will come. We're going to have to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous quantity for a while, and then hopefully as design then is refined, we all know about universal design for language learning and whatever. So yeah, hopefully that quality will come, but we have to be the people who try and bring about that change. So we have to write about it, and we have to bring it to people's attention, and that's exactly what we're trying to do. Thank you very much for coming, for all of our authors. Congratulations and well done to the editors, Ollie, and to Dave, and to Robert, and to Tina. Thanks very much for joining us on the Jiao Call podcast. We'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody. Congratulations. Well done.
Yes,
Thank you. Bye-bye. Congratulations.